Hi, my name is Nabila Christina binti Abdul Razak. My matrix number is 285126. So today I'm going to address the issue and what is the main issue of this study. So the natural rubber industry in Malaysia is crucial for the Malaysian economy. However, the volatile trend in natural rubber exploitation is a major concern for Malaysians' economy. This is because the fluctuating trend can slow down the country's economy and negatively impact the livelihood of Malaysian local rubbers farmers and create a disparity between exploitation and production. However, Malaysia's role as a leading producer of natural rubber during COVID-19. In 2020, Malaysia's rubber products reached a new high, which we would like to understand the factors influencing its exploitation, especially in the relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, to predict the future trends for rubber exploitation.
Chingy 2797778. I'm going to present about the research question. First, what is the observed trend in Malaysian natural rubber exploitation before, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic? Second, what are the key factors that significantly influence the Malaysia exploitation of natural rubber throughout the study months? Third, how is the forecasting for Malaysia total exploitation of natural rubber expected to change over the next 3 years?
For the next slide, I'm going to explain the objective of this research. Firstly, the objective of this research is to analyze and observe trend in Malaysia's natural rubber exploitation before, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic, spanning from December 2019 until January 2023. So the next objective is to identify and examine the key factor that significantly influence Malaysians' exploitation of natural rubber throughout the studied months mentioned. Lastly, we would like to forecast and assess the expected changes in Malaysia's total exploitation for natural rubber over the next 3 years, which is 2023 until 2025.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Ambia. Now we are talking about theoretical framework. So there are 5 independent variables, which are exchange rate, world price, local price, consumption, and production. And we only got dependent variables for exploitation. So the first one is exchange rate. So considering China is the biggest importer of natural rubber from Malaysia, so we are taking the data exchange rate between Malaysia and China. The price of Malaysian natural rubber is lower for foreign countries that purchasing it. So by their nation's currency due to the weaker Malaysian ringgit. So as purchasers, which is China, acquire more rubber for the same amount of their own currency. The demand for Malaysian rubber on foreign markets may rise as a result of this enhanced competitiveness. So the next one is world price of natural rubber. So Malaysia's natural rubber exports often increase when the price of natural rubber is highly globally. So higher price encourage Malaysian natural rubber to be exported more. This is because it becomes more profitable to our country and prioritizing domestic sales while local prices are high. In contrast, exporters may be inclined to sell overseas if the local prices are low in order to get higher prices and sustain revenue levels. And the third one is domestic consumption of natural rubber. So from the point of view of this point, if domestic demand is high, so the larger portion of Malaysia's natural rubber will be consumed domestically, leaving less available for exports. Conversely, if the domestic demand is low, then the production of natural rubber will be more allocated for the exportation. And next is the production of natural rubber. So the price of competitiveness of Malaysia's natural rubber on the international market can be impacted by local production levels. So if Malaysia produce a sizable volume of rubber domestically, it might be able to provide international purchaser like other countries with rates that are competitive. So due to this competition, the customers are more inclined to select Malaysian rubber from other countries or nations. So improving Malaysia's export prospects eventually.
Good day to Dr. and my friends. My name is Tan Si Hei, matric number 279851. Now I am going to present the type of study. This study employs a quantitative methodology, descriptive statistical measure, comparative analysis, and longitudinal descriptive study designed to examine how this factor affecting Malaysia's exportation of natural rubber may have affected by the pandemic. The next part is source of data and data collection procedures. In this study, the researchers use secondary data from Dawson, Malaysian Rubber Board, Tribe Database, and relevant scholarly articles. The data obtained including export features, production features, local price, world price, domestic consumption, and exchange rate. The historical data collected during the pre-pandemic period, the current data collected during the pandemic period, and the updated data collected after the COVID-19 pandemic period. As the research focus is on the analysis of macro factors affecting natural rubber export, it is more appropriate to focus on the organization to understand the dynamic and impact within the industry.
In this study, the analytical tool that we use is eView, which is a modern econometric, statistic, and forecasting package that offers powerful analytical tool within flexible, easy-to-use interface. There are 4 techniques that apply to analyze the data in this study. They are descriptive analysis, correlation analysis, regression analysis, and the very last one is Arima Model. Descriptive analysis illustrates an accurate value and systematic description of the variables. It shows that production has the highest mean value, which is 41740.64, while domestic consumption targets the highest median value, which is 41941.50. The probability determines the rejections or non-rejection of the null hypothesis. In this study, the null hypothesis is there is no significant relationship between the dependent and independent variables, while the alternative hypothesis refers to the significant relationship between dependent and independent variables. By looking at the probability values, null hypothesis can be rejected for domestic consumption, which means there is a significant relationship between domestic consumption with expectation. For the other variables, the null hypothesis cannot be rejected, as they have shown a loss statistically significant for the possibility values. That's all for me. Thank you.
Pearson correlation analysis was employed in this research study to analyze the relationship between exportation, domestic consumption, exchange, local price, production, and work price. The rationale is there is no significant relationship between exportation, domestic consumption, exchange, local price, production, and work price. The rationale is there is a significant relationship between exportation, domestic consumption, exchange, local price, production, and work price. Based on the table, we can see that the correlation between exportation, domestic consumption, exchange, production, and work price are higher than 0.8. It shows that they have a very strong positive correlation, while exportation and local price have a perfect positive correlation of 1, which means that when the local price increases by $1, the exportation of rubber on average will increase by 1 ton, holding other variables constant. The correlation is significant at the 0.05 level, 2 tests. Since the p-level is equal to 0.000, less than the significant level of 0.05, it means that the result is statistically significant. Thus, there is no evidence to reject the rationale. Based on the table, we found that there is correlation between exportation, domestic consumption, exchange, local price, production, and work price. However, there is no serious multi-collinearity problem occur as the VIF is less than 10. That's all for my part. Thank you.
So for the next slide, I'm going to explain the regression analysis. So firstly, I'm going to explain the R-squared. It is a statistical that measures the proportion of variance in the dependent variable that can be explained by the dependent variable. So to put it another way, R-squared indicates how well the data match the regression model, the goodness of it. The closer to R2 to 1, it is better. So for this regression analysis, the R2 is 0.999. Therefore, the changes in X can explain the 99% of the changes in the total exploitation of Y. Therefore, the goodness of fit of this regression analysis is very high. As for the Debye-Watson test, it is called the D-value. When it is near to 2, it indicates that there is likely no significant autocorrelation, and if it is away from 2, it is otherwise. So there is an autocorrelation. Therefore, for this Debye-Watson test statistic, the results for the study is 1.923792. Therefore, there is likely no significant autocorrelation. Lastly, we are going to explain the t-statistic, which is, it explains when t-statistic is more or equal than 2, we must reject the H-null. According on the variable, only local price produces the t-statistic that is more than 2, which is 660.1869. This shows that there is statistical evidence that beta 1, which is local price, is significantly different, and through the result, t-test proves that the consumption variable has a positive and significant relationship to Malaysia's rubber exports. And also the p-value that is less than 0.05, we also have to reject the null hypothesis. As for the p-value for local price, it is 0.000, so it is less than 0.05. Therefore, we need to reject the null hypothesis. It explains that there's no difference between the means and concludes that there is significant difference does exist. Other than that, the X variable for t-test statistic and probability, it is all we must reject the null hypothesis, and there is no significant relationship between the X variable and Y variable.
And now we are looking at prediction and forecasting. So we use the data and run it on Arima Model. If you can see on the left side, the p-value, it shows 0.8737, which are more than 0.05. So we cannot reject the null hypothesis, which is expectation as a unit root. Then we proceed to the automated decay Fuller test equation to looking for the possible models that needs to be run to forecast. And we do the first differences. It shows that the right side, the p-value is 0.00. So from that, we look at the correlogram, which determine the identification part, and come up with the possible models, which is R1, MA3. We run using these models, and we get the forecast data. Here is the result after we run the model on Arima Model, and this is our prediction of forecast. So we are getting the data from February 2023 until January 2025. So the red one shows the data of exploitation from the previous years, and the blue one is the new one, which is the prediction of forecast data that we run on Arima Model. So that's all from me. Thank you.
So for the first slide, which is the introduction of the conclusion, where this chapter serves as a foundation for this research, providing a comprehensive overview of the research objective and its significance, where it's also emphasized the importance of conducting cooperative analysis between the study and previous research to identify gaps in the existing literature and build upon previous findings. So for this slide, I'll be talk about the summary of the findings. So yeah, literature review conducted in the study reveals several noteworthy findings regarding the factor influencing Malaysia's exportation of natural rubber, where previously studies have examined the impact of various factors such as the price, natural rubber, production levels, demand trends on rubber. Furthermore, the local price of natural rubber has a significant positive association with exportation, where higher local price encourage domestic sales, reducing the incentive for exporters to engage in international trade. And lastly, the world price of natural rubber shows a significant positive correlation with exportation. When the world price increases, the exportation of rubber also tends to increase. So for this slide, I'll be talking about the implication of the study, where this study has several implications for natural rubber industry and policymakers in Malaysia. Firstly, policymakers should consider the impact of domestic consumption on exportation and implemented measures to stimulate domestic demand for natural rubber products. This can help to support the export industry by reducing, given the significant positive correlation between world price and exportation. Policymakers should closely monitor global market trends and adjust export strategies accordingly, where diversification of export destination and products can help mitigate risk associated with fluctuation in world price. So for this part, I'll be talking about the limitation of the conclusion. So while the study provides a valuable insight into the factor influencing Malaysia's exportation of natural rubber, it is also important to acknowledge certain limitations that should be taken into consideration. Where firstly, the study relied on secondary data obtained from government reports, trade records, and industry statistics. Although efforts were made to ensure the reliability and accuracy of the data, there may still be a limitation inherent to the data source. Lastly, it is also important to recognize that the findings of this study are specific to the context of Malaysia's natural rubber industry and may not be directly applicable to the other countries or industries. The unique characteristics of Malaysia's rubber sector, including its production capacity, market conditions, and export destinations. This also could limit the generalizability of the findings. So caution should be exercised when extrapolating these findings or to other contexts, and further research is needed to assess the applicability of the results in the different settings. And for the last one, the recommendation of the whole conclusion. So based on the findings and application of this study, several recommendations are proposed to enhance the exportation of natural rubber in Malaysia and address the challenge identified. So firstly, effort should be made to enhance domestic consumption of natural rubber product. This can be achieved through targeted marketing campaign, consumer education initiative, and the development of domestic industries that utilize natural rubber. Also, improving data collection and analysis capabilities is very essential for evidence-based decision making, where policymakers and industry stakeholders should collaborate to enhance the accuracy, timeliness, and accessibility of data related to the natural rubber industry. So by implementing this recommendation, Malaysia can further strengthen its position as a leading exporter of natural rubber, foster sustainability across the industry, and navigate the challenges and opportunities presented by a rapidly evolving global market. So that's all from me. Thank you.